Hey everybody, I'm John Shallow here with Cruise Addicts, and my guest Michael Consoli is here as well. Hi, Michael.
Hey, how are you, John?
Good. First, I want to say thanks, Michael, for joining us again, and also everybody for being here this Sunday afternoon and taking the time. Obviously, we'd love to get your questions, so we'll get right to it. Start putting your questions down below in the comments, whatever you might have on your mind. Michael is a award-winning travel agent, has sold more Viking cruises than anyone in the top 9 in the last 9 years. Really exciting to have him here. If he knows so much and he's here to share with you. So please ask your comments. We've also got some other things we're going to cover. We're going to talk about some current Viking specials and also talk some of the facets of air. And wow. So Michael just got back from a trip. How was it?
That was great, John. Yep, we did Japan with a group of 60 guests, and they all had a wonderful time. We got to go to China and South Korea. It was a lot of fun.
Now, I know you have groups with your business. Can you tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, 3 or 4 times a year, I invite my clients to sail with us on special trips that we do, and we curate the whole thing, the excursion, the sailing, special events along the way. It's a real treat for them, and certainly a treat for me. I really enjoy getting to spend time with my clients who, my clients are all over the country, and we talk on the phone regularly and all of that, but I very rarely get to see them in person. And so it's a real treat to be able to spend some time with them.
I know this is a little side note. We didn't have it listed, but groups are a great way to save money through any travel agent you use. It really kind of checks all the boxes for me. If you're flexible, you can contact your travel agent and hopefully contact Michael. I put his information down below. Please reach out to him. And you can say, hey, do you have any upcoming groups? And they have access to sometimes a large array of groups, whatever the cruise line might be. And it gives you a chance to get a great rate, because a lot of times the group was booked out maybe 6 months or a year ahead of time, depending on what it is. And so you get a great rate, you get perks that you otherwise wouldn't get, that are passed along by the cruise line with that group a lot of times. And Michael, anything I'm missing?
No, I mean, actually, we take a lot of what we call speculative group space, and we're able to lock in pricing early, as you said, for our groups, and save guests a lot of money on certain sailings where we have group space. So it's a really interesting concept, and it has worked well for our clients, and being able to save them some additional money on their trips.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's and a lot of times you don't have to feel bogged down by being with. You have to be part of a group, right? Where you have to be part of certain things. Sometimes I might have activities, but most importantly, you get a great rate and you get to do things that you might not otherwise do. So wow, really appreciate it. So I know we want to talk about some current Viking specials.
Yeah, I mean, currently, as Viking always has the past guest special where guests save $100 or $200 depending on how close they are to their last sailing. So that is always available, but we currently have that $25 deposit, the reduced deposit, where normally the deposit is $500 and now is reduced to $25 per person. So that's not necessarily a savings on the cruise, but a savings on the initial outlay. And there are some special promos for guests that already have an existing booking that want to look at booking an additional cruise. So there's an additional savings of between $250 and $500 per person if somebody has an existing Viking booking and makes another new trip, reserves a new trip after April 1st of this year. So if they had an existing booking before April 1st and they want to make a new booking now before the end of the month, there's an additional savings on that new booking. And it's something that is combinable with the past guest savings and any other savings that we can provide our guests. So there's a real opportunity to save some money and hold their space with just a $25 deposit. And for those guests that have an existing booking, that promo also provides final payment 6 months prior to departure. So they're not paying for it a year to 18 months in advance like most guests have to pay with Viking.
Wow, you've just checked all the boxes, haven't you? Because this is all things that people talk about in our group.
Yeah. So
that's incredible. And how can they get a hold of you if they want to take advantage of this special, Michael?
Yeah, just give us a call at 800-913-7245 or email me at michael@planmycruise.com. That's MICHAEL@planmycruise.com.
Awesome. Well, like I said, this is things people talk about on the group all the time. They're constantly, bringing up wise final payment, or right at the beginning, and all these different things. And I know we've covered the $25 deposit before. It's such an opportunity to lock in that cruise, save that space, especially it's real hard to find itineraries that book up fast, right?
Yeah, and I mean this is an opportunity for guests who have an existing booking to be able to push that final payment date back and save some additional funds. So if they're looking to do something in 25 or 26, now's the time to book it, and they just have to put down $25. It's like a no-brainer, to be honest.
So do you have an itinerary that's standing out in your mind, some sailing that you would recommend a guest that might be, maybe they're just on the fence for something. You say, hey, this one's really sells fast. You might have not thought about it, but you can, for $25, you can lock this in.
100%. Yeah.
Is there a certain one that stands out to you?
I mean, look, I think it's even applicable to sailings of 35 days or more, which typically have an even larger deposit. So, some of those longer voyages, the grand voyages, things like that, does not apply to the World Cruise, but it may apply to combination sailings or back-to-backs that are, even longer than 35 days. So, I think it's definitely a great way to lock in some of those tough sailings to get, passage to India or, the trade routes of the Middle Ages, or those sailings, Malta, Morocco, and the Med, that sell out really quickly. And you can book it for late 25 or 2026 and still save that money and push back the final payment. So there's a great opportunity for guests that are looking to, make some extra bookings. And really, again, their exposure is $50. So
that is amazing. And if you haven't already, please ask your question down below. Please check in. Let us know if you've got a cruise planned. Just say hello. We'd love to sit there and hear from you during these live streams. I know we got a lot of people watching. We really appreciate you taking the time to join me and Michael here as we talk Viking. But of course, go ahead and ask any question below about all different topics. We'd love to hear from you. Let's see here. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us. So, wow, I know we also want to talk about Viking Air, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, air is always a topic that requires, more information. So the Viking Air program, has evolved somewhat over the past 6 months. And I just thought it was really important to have like a little update regarding that. Many people are, familiar with the air program and the value that Viking Air provides the guest. Taking the air through Viking is going to give them some flexibility in what, when they travel, when they want to leave, when they want to come back, if they want to change their air city, things like that. But some of the schedules can be limited. And so we have a lot of conversations with guests about Viking's contracted rate. And when they see these free air offers, or air for $4.99, $5.99, $12.99, air for China, things like that. And there's great savings built into the economy rates for sure. Even many of the business class rates still provide, significant savings. Unfortunately, over the past 2 years, we've seen air pricing go through the roof. We are seeing business class fares for Europe in $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, which,
wow,
really, really high. But with the Viking Air, it's $43,000, $45,000, $4,900 a person. That's a significant savings for those guests that want to travel in business class and have the means to do so. It's the opportunity to save some money. But the caveat is that we have to work within the air contracts that the cruise line has. And I think many times the guest has the idea that they can choose from any flight that's out there that travels to where they want to go and from the city they're traveling from. And the truth is that it is limited. The cruise line has contracts with the airlines on certain flights, a certain number of seats at a certain fare code on those flights. And so we have to choose from what's available under that contracted rate. And sometimes that means that the direct flight is not available. Our goal when we work with our guests is to get them on the most direct routing, the most convenient with the best connection times. And I personally look at every single air schedule that comes across my desk. Every single guest that books with us, I look at their air and I treat it as if it's my own. And we look at it very seriously. We don't just assign a schedule and say, here you go. We look at every aspect of it, what time it leaves, what the connection time is, what airline it's on, what the seating configuration is. It's very important to us that the guest has as good of an experience with their air as we can possibly get. under the cruise line's contracted rate. And you keep hearing me say that because it's really important to know that there are limitations as to what we can offer through the cruise line. However, that limitation oftentimes provides an excellent savings for the guest, and we're still able to get there on a convenient schedule with reasonable connection times, getting them, in at a time that's reasonable for them. And it is a challenge. I mean, air has become a challenge since the pandemic. The airlines want to maximize their profit margins because they lost 2 years of revenue. The cruise lines constantly negotiating for airspace. And, it is a constant challenge and something that we deal with every single day. So I just thought it was important to kind of talk about that process and kind of reiterate how the air works with the cruise line. Once the guest purchases the air, they have 3 options really for an air schedule. One is to just wait until the cruise line generates a schedule, and then they're kind of stuck with what the cruise line gives them. That is the least favorable way to do it, in my opinion. The second way is to use Viking has on the majority of their itineraries, offers the guest the opportunity to go in and choose their air from the contracted rates in the My Viking Journey portal. They call it My Viking Air. They can go in there and select their own flights. That opens up about 4 months prior to departure. So already when the air opens at 10 or 8 months prior for these schedules, by the time you get to 4 months, there's really some real limitations as to what you can choose from, right? So the third option is to use Air Plus, which allows us to work with the air department as early as 8 months prior, sometimes even earlier than that. We recommend 8 months prior because we feel that's when the cruise line has the majority of their schedules in place, their contracts in place. So 8 months prior, they can pay a fee of $100 or $150 for Air Plus, which allows them to have a say as to how the flights are routed within the cruise line's contracted rates. So it's not going to allow them to get the direct flight possibly, or, it may, but it's not going to guarantee they get the direct flight. The Air Plus is not an option that allows them to choose from whatever's out there. It allows them to choose from what's available under the contracted rate. And when the guest pays the Air Plus fee, they have a say early, and they're going to know earlier what their air schedule is. And so those guests, who the majority of guests are very, tied to what their air is, that are very interested in making sure they have a decent schedule, we recommend taking the Air Plus, and we work with them to find the best schedule under the contracted rate. And so those really are the 3 options for air, the least favorable being just waiting to see what they get, and then they're kind of stuck with it. We really recommend that the guest pay the Air Plus fee and work with us to help them find the perfect schedule within the cruise line's contracted rate that will work for them. So,
yeah.
And then in addition to that, there are other opportunities to do things. They can deviate the air to come in early or come into another city that the cruise line services. Like if they want to fly into Rome instead of Venice or a few days early, they can pay what we call a deviation fee. That allows them to change the air city arrival and the travel date. And so things like that are also available to them. And the flexibility of changing their air up until the time that it's ticketed, which is usually about 120 days prior to departure, they have the opportunity to do that. Whereas if they buy the airline ticket with the airline and then they want to change their ticket, they have to pay a change fee, right? Because they're paying for the ticket when they buy it. But through Viking, they have the opportunity to change their ticket up until the time the air is ticketed. And that's a lot of flexibility with really little cost for them.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you is basically using Viking Air gives you lots of savings. We're talking $4,000 for on business class. I'm sure it's pretty significantly as far as percentage wise on economy, right?
Yeah.
And the flexibility, just if you can choose air 8 months rather than 4 months, even under the contracted rates, you may be able to get the best flight or the most direct flight, if not direct, if it's available at 8 months out rather than 4 months out, because it's most likely going to be gone, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yes, 100%. So, and it just is, it gives the guest more control, the Air Plus. And, when there is a problem, right, let's say we do select a schedule or they have a schedule that's favorable that they've been assigned, and then the airline cancels that flight, then they're just automatically assigned to something else. Without the Air Plus, we can't say, well, wait a minute, we had this great schedule and now we have this schedule that's less than desirable. How are we going to fix that? Without the Air Plus, there's not a fix, right? The guest would have had to have the Air Plus in order for us to be able to fix that. And that's a fee that Viking charges to have that access earlier to the air schedule. Without that access, or without the Air Plus fee being on the booking, we don't have the opportunity to really fix it and back to a favorable schedule when a change that's happened is out of my control, the cruise line's control, because the airline has canceled a flight or changed the flight or canceled the connecting flight. So it is a way to give us more control over the air.
I was sitting here thinking, one of the best parts about this job is being able to learn from you and hear about your business and how it affects the clients in Viking Cruisers. And it's one of those things that reminded me in a previous conversation. You don't know what you don't know, right? And
know it.
And when we talked previously that the air part of your business is huge. That the air part of a Viking cruise is a huge amount of the process that as a consumer you're so focused on the cruise, right? Not how big a part the air plays in this whole thing. I mean, we all have to. We're gonna go on a Viking cruise. Mostly, everybody's gonna have to take air to it. So it's just one of those things that you learn, and I've learned through these live streams, and I'm sure our guests watching this, the viewers more so are learning this too. That air is just a massive part of the booking process, and I think. Having an agent like yourself and learning from you is really, really valuable.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to mention too that what we offer for the guests when it comes to this kind of thing. We're not just, like I said, I handle the air. I work with the air department to get the ideal schedule. But even after that process, when I get a change, and we talk about this all the time, it's a joke in the travel agent community, like your travel agent fixes problems you didn't even know you had. When we get a schedule change, literally, I look at the schedule, I compare it to the old one, we figure out what the change was, then we go back and work with the air department before the guest even knows there's a problem, and we get the solution and then provide that solution to the guest. And that is something that I think we talk about being a safety net for the guest. And they don't have to spend hours on the phone with Viking's call center and on the air department to try to get something fixed. And that's what we read the majority of frustration about, right? That people have spent so much time on the phone trying to get their air fixed, and they don't have to do that. And there's no additional fee to working with us and having us do that for them. And in addition, we're the safety net when there's a problem, when they're traveling and there's a flight misconnection or there's a cancellation. The cruise line provides an 800 number, a 24-hour 800 hotline for them, but we are also a safety net to be able to assist them when that happens. That is, something that doesn't cost them anything, that is, invaluable, I think, when you're panicked about a flight, right? And people who've been on a Viking cruise know when they get to the gate, there's 90 other people with a Viking luggage tag on their thing, right? And all those people are on your flight going to Europe, and they're also missing that connection flight, right? So they're also going to stand in line when they get to the other airport, and try to get that fixed. And we provide the safety net of being able to assist in an emergency. And I think that is really something that's important to mention.
Yeah, and obviously you build personal relationships. I mean, your clients are very. We've seen many on the live streams and different comments. You have very passionate customers, and they've become really. Your clients have become really close to because they trust you in one of the biggest purchases in their lives, right? These amazing vacations.
Yeah, and I mean, we talk about this. My team and I talk about this all the time. It doesn't matter if somebody's spending $500 a person or $50,000 a person. It's all relative to them what they're spending and how that's an investment in their vacation. And we want to make sure it's as smooth as possible. So we go to whatever lengths that is to make sure that happens. And I think that we've built a loyal client base because people know that we treat it as if it's our own, and that we're going to make sure that they get the best possible experience.
Right. And we've got Michael's information down below there. If you'd like to reach out to him and ask any question, he'd love to hear from you. You can email him. You can call him during business hours. He'd love to work with you. I also know there's some amazing news from Viking. They just came out this week, 3 days ago, actually, and announced that they've added a 5-night Mongolia extension for China voyages starting in 2024. So pretty cool stuff there. I know the comments have been kind of like all over the place as far as the group, as far as China sailings. But is there anything you can add about this, Michael?
Yeah, I mean, having just been in China and for a couple days, and talking with the travel partners there, they are very anxious to get their tourism business back. So I think that we see a lot of the cruise lines returning to China, to Shanghai, and so we see that, and I think that that their economy has suffered for many reasons, but mainly the tourism part of it as well. So they're anxious to get back to that, and I think that Viking has this ship that is doing these limited sailings on the coast of China, and they're offering things that people want to see. Going to Tibet, going to Mongolia, going to see the terracotta warriors, all that stuff. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. Viking operated, a river cruise ship on the Yangtze for many, many years. And these extensions were all things that they offered during that cruise. So they are well versed in making this happen. In addition, I mean, they've been operating that ship, the Edun, which is actually the Viking Sun. They've been operating that ship there for a couple years now. And exclusively to the China market. And now it's being opened. These sailings are exclusively English-speaking countries: the U.S., the U.K., Australia, New Zealand. So it's a pretty interesting thing to see that return to China.
Really awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's all about exploring the world, and that's such a vast part of the world with so much to offer. And people talk about it. It sounds like a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting trip for sure.
So I guess now's the time we're going to go to our live Q&A. We've got so many comments. Really excited to get to them. I know we've got Steve Rich is asking from YouTube, how long will China visa application take? I'm guessing that it takes a visa.
Yeah, they do generally take about 3 weeks, and we definitely recommend working with Gen Visa if you're on the Viking product. All the cruise lines have a partnership with a visa company, and Viking works with Gen Visa. So we recommend working with the recommended visa company that the vendor uses. They're going to be most familiar with what you're going to need and what's going to be required to get what you're going to need. But again, I think that the visa process is probably going to be simplified somewhat, just because I think they really want to increase, tourism in China. But luckily for me, I had from 2019 a 10-year visa for China. So this last visit, I didn't have to have a visa to get off the ship on my own. Some of the cruise lines that are visiting China, and specifically not this one that we're talking about with Viking, that trip you absolutely have to have a visa for. But they are loosening the visa requirements for ships that are just merely visiting China for 1 or 2 ports. China is not requiring the visa. But for these sailings on the Edun that are starting and ending in China, you will absolutely have to have a visa. So I do recommend working with Gen Visa on getting that.
Okay, thank you. We've got a lot of questions. We appreciate it, folks. So please ask yours when we get to it here. And Sherry Snyder is coming in from YouTube. Thank you, Sherry, for asking a question. She says, I don't guess travel agents purchase this space. I'm guessing the airspace she's probably asking about.
I think she's referring to the group space that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Yeah. So Sherry, no, I mean, travel agents can't purchase the space in another travel agency's group, but certainly a travel agent can create their own space, their own group space, to take advantage of that pricing when the new itineraries come out. So, but unfortunately, no, travel agents cannot purchase space in another travel agent's group.
Oh, okay. I got you now. Thank you. Facebook user from the groups checking in. They said, I wanted to do a 22-day cruise from Barcelona to Athens in January of 2025. Would you recommend it, Michael, or should we opt for May?
So, I mean, that's really what we call quiet season. So, that time frame is an off season for the cruise lines to be traveling in that part of the world. And so, you're going to see the quiet season times have less stores open or less restaurants open, things like that. So yeah, I typically do recommend that you go later in the season if you want to be able to, experience have the full experience. but it is a really nice sailing to do in the off time if that's the time that you have. So something that there are a lot of factors that I would take into consideration when advising you when you should go. So it's something that you may want to talk up to your travel advisor about, or give us a call and we'd be happy to assist you with it.
And just so I understand, because I kind of lost me a little bit, what time do you recommend was it January or May or somewhere in between?
I mean, May is a great time. It just depends on what part of the Med. The specific time that he's looking at, it would be the warmest part of the Med is probably going to be that part of Greece, but then it's going to be cooler in other parts. So, I mean, I typically recommend, Europe and in the Mediterranean in like late April, May, or sometime September, October. It just depends, but it's going to really depend on the client's needs and what they're looking for, right? So, and we help them determine what would be best for them. Okay,
so I maybe should give Michael a call or email him. He'd love to hear from you, and you guys can talk this through. He can help you out, because that's the thing about your business, Michael, and what we've always talked about travel agents. It's not always one size fits all. There's so many factors and different variables and different things. What one client doesn't like, another client enjoys. We've talked about that over and over. And it's been fascinating to talk to you about this. Something that's important to one person isn't important to another, and sometimes there's advantages to both, right?
So right. Everybody sees value differently. That's what we talk about, right? Yeah, so some guests may say the savings that they could have in traveling in December or January in the Med versus what they would pay to travel at another time during the year that might be more favorable weather. Everybody sees that value differently. So that's how we work with our guests to help them figure out what's best for them.
Great. Thanks. You said it better than I did. And Vicky is checking in from YouTube. Thank you, Vicky. She goes, I just heard Norway will allow zero emission cruise ships into the fjords after September 26th. Does Viking have any plans to meet this requirement?
Yeah, I do think that they have. Look, Viking is heavily invested in Norway. I mean, they're a Norwegian company, and they have a real connection with Norway. And I think you'll see that that's why many of their itineraries start and end in Bergen, things like that. So yes, I am certain that they will have plans to meet or exceed the requirement that's going to be set for Norway for 2026.
Awesome. And Kathy West has a great question from YouTube. Thanks, Kathy, for writing us. Question, is the pushback final payment for any cruise, ocean or river? And I have one booked for this summer and one for next year already.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Whatever you have booked with Viking, if you are making a new booking under that promo we talked about at the beginning of the live stream, and you make a new booking for any time in the future, that booking can be pushed back with that promo to 6 months prior to departure, simply because you have the other booking. So it does not matter if the other booking is the same river or ocean or expedition, meaning if it's the same type of cruise, it's just that you have an existing Viking booking. Okay,
so yeah, anywhere, any cruise, right?
Any cruise that Viking offers, that's correct.
Yeah. And Ann Rice is checking in from YouTube, and I think she wants to know if you have the secret squirrel pass hidden, because she says on occasion secret sales for free air happen with Viking, typically is based on a code on the back of a flyer. Does Viking give you the codes as a top rep?
No, but I can tell you that we are aware of, no, they don't give them to me, but we are aware of them just because of the sheer volume that we do. And look, the free air thing is the secret sale, or what we would call the targeted marketing piece. The free air is typically offered. I get this question a lot about free air, so I love to clarify it. The free air is typically offered on the Grand European or the European Sojourn, sometimes offered on France's Finest, which is also a 14-day cruise, and for specific months, July and August and November, so very slow months for the cruise line on those dates. And then, much closer in to fill on other itineraries to fill in what's not selling well, right? So most of the time, like we saw one for June this past month that offered free air, but most of the sailings only had standard cabins left. So, I mean, it's really just to fill in the blanks of what's left. But to answer your question, no, they don't give them to us, but you can imagine with the volume that we do that we're fully aware of them. So yeah, we always make sure that our guests are getting the best price and the best value every time they book with us.
Right. And Sherry Schneider is checking in from YouTube. Thanks, Sherry, for asking. And she says, in your opinion, what is the best Viking cruise for first timers to totally hook them? And my first question was, well, ocean or river, Sherry? I guess that's the question because it's such a big difference. And even expedition, they've, back in the day it was just Viking river, right? But now we've got so many choices. But it was such a great question though to ask.
It is a great question, and I wish there was one answer for everybody, right? But everybody's different. So, I mean, it's our job really as travel advisors to help them figure out what's the best for them. And then, look, I mean, we really feel strongly that cruising in general is going to hook the guest, but cruising with Viking is, it doesn't really matter what itinerary it is that's going to hook them. I mean, the service levels, the food, all of that is maintained very well across the entire fleet, across the spectrum. And so really the best way to hook the guest is to make sure you're fitting them to the right product. And that's what we do best, I think, is work with our clients to fit them to the right product, the right itinerary at the right time of the year, and the right cabin with the right air schedule. That's what we do. So.
Oh, she's asking more. Let's see. But she didn't get to it. Yes. Yeah. So to my understanding of what you just said was it really goes back to that relationship, because somebody might really be a better fit, for example, for a Viking river cruise to the Christmas markets. And that might come up in the conversation, and that might be their dream vacation. And they're going to have a great Viking experience, right?
Right.
Where someone else might want to go to the Mediterranean more so and on an ocean ship. So it's just a matter of balancing that order.
You have to help them find what's right for them. So not everybody is, the Explorer Suite or the Owner Suite on the ocean product, and not everybody's the standard cabin on the river product. I mean, it's a matter of helping them find. Some people want to go to Germany. Some people would rather go to France. Some people have a dream of, doing the wines in Bordeaux. I mean, that's the job. The way to hook them on a product is to help them find the perfect itinerary and ship and sailing date for them. And that's what I think as a travel advisor, we do best.
And now you didn't bring this up yet, but one of the reasons
I just want to mention that I don't think somebody in a call center at Viking is going to help them do that. I don't think that somebody who's working in a call center who takes the call directly from the guest is going to help them do that. What they're used to doing is calling and having somebody say, I want to go on the Grand European in September 4th from Amsterdam to Budapest, and I want economy air from Detroit. I mean, that's what they're used to. What we do is help them find the best value for them. And for those guests that are looking for the best value, the best thing to do is going to be to work with a seasoned travel advisor that understands and knows the product and is going to be able to fit them to the right thing.
I wanted to touch on something, because as you were saying that, I was thinking of something. Now, can you tell the audience how many cruises you've actually taken? Because it's pretty remarkable. So, Michael knows what he's talking about because of his travel experience. He's just not behind it. He is behind his desk a lot, working very hard, but he's actually experienced these things. So could you kind of touch on that?
I've been on over 250 cruises all over the world on all different lines. That's what helps me fit the product to the guest and help them find what works for them. So it's not something that you can get from a book or from a brochure. This is something that is firsthand experience that myself and my team have, and helping them find the right product and the right fit. I've been on over, I think, 30 plus Viking cruises on expedition, river, and ocean, and all different categories of cabins and all different parts of the world. And, we really pride ourselves on being able to share that experience with the guest. And I think that that's an investment in my business and being able to do that. So, yeah, it's
that's awesome.
And, and John will tell you, as will many of my clients, that even though I'm away, I'm usually always working. So my favorite trips are those that are in Europe, because I can spend my morning and mid-afternoon touring. And then at 3:00 in the afternoon, it's 9 a.m. here, and I can work until 11 o'clock at night. So it's like getting 2 days in one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Ann Rice got a question for you, Michael. She goes, does one have to pay in full for AirPlus to pick the flights 8 months in advance?
No, you just have to have AirPlus on the booking. You don't have to pay in full. So if your final payment date is pushed back for some reason, and you are 8 months out, and the booking does not need to be paid in full in order for you to be able to select your flights, as long as you have AirPlus on the booking.
Awesome. Thank you. And Kathy Gentle's checking in from YouTube. She goes, can you talk about the land extensions by train?
So I saw this and I was wondering which extension she's talking about. The only ones that I can think of that are by train are the ones in Alaska, the Pristine Alaska and the Denali Explorer that would include train, and then Oslo and Scenic Train, which is at the end of many of the itineraries that begin and start in Bergen. That's offered there. All of them are great experiences. I have to say the latter is probably one of the most popular. Well, Denali, of course, is extremely popular. But when it comes to the extensions that might be on Viking homelands or British Isles Explorer or something like that, that extension, Oslo and Scenic Train, or the Best of Norway, which includes Oslo and Scenic Train, is one of the most popular extensions because the 7-hour train ride from Bergen to Oslo is just an incredible, scenic experience, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of train type of subject matter coming up on the internet and travel lately. It seems like there's a major resurgence, especially in Norway and Alaska, where people are kind of refinding this whole train experience, and the views and the whole experience can be really incredible. It seems like there's a resurgence, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and they do offer, I failed to mention as I was sitting here thinking about it, they do also offer a Rocky Mountaineer trip with the Alaska ones too, and the Canadian Rockies. So
yeah, that's really popular. And Sherry Snyder's from YouTube says, super helpful Q&A, thanks. And I know we really appreciate having Michael here. Let's see. Kathy West has another question. Just to follow up a question, how long does the pushback final payment promotion last? Sorry if you answered this already.
Yeah, so the promo that we were talking about at the beginning of the call, of the webinar, that promo is currently until April 30. It's an additional savings as well as 6 months final payment date for guests that have an existing booking that create a new booking after April the 1st. So again, they have to have an existing booking prior to April 1st, and then they have to create a new booking after April the 1st, but before April 30th, to take advantage of that special offer, which includes additional savings in addition to the past guest discount and the final payment date being pushed back to 6 months prior. That is, a special offer that they have now. Again, and what's today, John? Today's April 14th. Yep. So that promo is good until April 30th of 2024. We don't know if it will be extended or not, but we encourage you to take advantage of it if you're looking at adding an additional booking. Again, it's the whole point is to create new business. So they want you to create a new booking with them in order to take advantage of that. So it would not be applicable to existing bookings or bookings that you've already made prior to April 1st. It's only applicable to bookings that are new. For those guests that had an existing booking before April 1st.
We should probably post something on the group about this because we've got 15 days left, it sounds like, give or take 15, starting with a business day. And then obviously a real incentive that I've never heard of this before. Have they done something like this?
Very, very creative with the way they come up with promotions, right? They like for them to be targeted. They sent these letters out to guests that have existing bookings. The guests that have existing bookings made before April 1st, they sent letters out to them or emails to them specifically telling them about the promotion. And it is somewhat targeted, but I mean, everybody's talking about it on the Facebook page already. So, it's something that guests can take advantage of if they create a new booking. So,
okay, great. Wow. So many great questions. If you haven't asked a question already, please ask down below. We'd love to hear from you, and please check in if you haven't already and let us know if you have a upcoming cruise. Take this opportunity to ask Michael your question and just join the discussion. We'd love to hear from you. Wow, so many great things, Michael. Anything else that we haven't really touched on that you'd like to touch on?
No, I think that it's, I really just wanted to see if we could chat about the air and kind of share those options with the guests. I have found that lately, especially, I think people, don't really understand how the air program works. And our job is to set expectations properly and being able to work with them on getting a reasonable air schedule. And, we do our best to get them the most ideal schedule. But the options that people have the options that people have, that they don't really understand how they work and what they are. And we have a lot of people that book with us and they're like, oh no, I don't want to do Air Plus. And then we get a schedule that is unfavorable. And they're like, oh, I wish we did the Air Plus. And so then we try to, erase that and start over and do the Air Plus thing, which isn't always an option. So especially when those schedules are applied at 4 months prior, the availability is pretty low. So
did you have a lot of I told you so moments, or
yeah, I mean, no, we would never say that. we try very hard to educate the guest on what the options are when they book with us, and some people just they are apprehensive about spending an extra $100 or $150 just to have a say in the air, but we feel it's really important to help help them get a great schedule. So we do talk about it with them. I think that Kathy West followed up. I just see this comment here. I have to say, Kathy, thank you. It says, Michael, I did get a letter from Viking, but I missed the final payment info. So yeah, I mean, this goes back to what John and I are just talking about. It's anything to do with vacation is very exciting, right? So when people see it, they look at it, they get very excited about it, and the details sometimes don't see. And this is really this is the positive detail, Kathy. So even though you missed it, if you do decide to book something, you still will get that final payment date pushed back. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. And just to circle back to what you were just talking about as far as the Viking, why guests should use the Viking Air. What I like about this live stream is, like I said, I'm learning all the time from you. And even just hearing it over and over again, I'm sure a lot of the repeat viewers are hearing it too. You're taking the time here to explain the why, and the reason behind how you instruct your guests to what they should do, why they should have the Viking Air, why they should buy insurance, and then of course you have the reasons for that. And all that tied together can help it easier for the guests to not have problems and make it easier for them. Yeah, they might have to pay a little bit, but there's the why you should, because it's going to help you in the end and possibly make your trip a better experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's obviously not a money-making thing. It's like, well, this is going to give you more flexibility. You could get a better route. And, you're going to be able to get airfare literally 4 months before everybody else that didn't choose to do that, and the flexibility in case there's any issues that the guest wants to adjust to. Because I'm not calling people fussy, but at times people want certain things, and if you don't have that flexibility, no one likes to be told no. But of course, if that gives you options, then that's a great thing, right?
And we don't like to tell people no. I mean, I am one of those people that does not like to tell people no. So and that, I think, is helps my clients, because I don't like to tell them no. So we will usually find another solution. If we can't find the solution that works for them with the Viking Air, we'll look at something else. We'll look at removing the Air, maybe booking the Air separately, something like that. But I mean, overall, I do strongly feel that the Viking Air is the best value for the guest in the majority of situations. So and that is what I have found to work best for my clients. So.
And I'm going to try to put into a reel or something soon. This kind of ties into the other question, which we haven't touched today. It's kind of a big topic, which is insurance. And this isn't about making money, I can assure you, folks. It's about, we've had a deep conversation with Michael in the past. I can't tell you the exact episode, but it's the same thing, the same conversation where when Michael gets a phone call at 3 a.m. That something really tragic's happened to a guest and they need to come home, or something worse has happened, someone's passed away or whatever, it's great to where he can actually talk to his clients. And if you want to touch on that as far as how you've done the same thing, just what I'm trying to say is, just like he recommends someone buy the Viking Air, he also recommends a good travel insurance. And we hear so many, well, I've got a credit card and I've got this and I've got that, but the right policy is going to make his job easier to help his client. It's all about helping the client. And I think that means everything. And
what we don't want to do is we don't want a guest to lose money, right? So that's the thing. Like, we talk to the guests and see what's right for them, just like with the cruise, just like with the air. Everybody's needs are different when it comes to insurance. We want a guest to have insurance. We don't care if it's our insurance, if it's Viking's insurance, or if they have a strong credit card policy, which, by the way, I have to say most credit card policies are pretty weak. But if they have insurance, then we're happy about that, because then they have an avenue to pursue when something happens. Every day somebody says to me, oh no, I don't need insurance, we're definitely going. Well, I mean, you're not definitely going if your mother passes away, somebody falls and breaks a hip. I mean, those are the things that insurance are for, the unforeseen. So you cannot foresee what's going to happen and, might keep you from traveling. I had a client the other day who called me and was very sick when they got to the airport, was, just deathly ill, and they had to be rushed to the emergency room, and they're going to miss their trip, and that's just the way it is. There's not an opportunity for them to go, and so the insurance protects them in a myriad of instances, but specifically health issues, death or illness of an immediate family member, and a myriad of other things that cannot be foreseen. So we recommend having travel insurance, and we talk to the guest about what's best for them. We have our own third-party policy that we feel very strongly about, but it's not always the right fit for everybody. Sometimes the Viking policy is a better fit, but we help them determine what is, and we have a really great policy that the majority of our guests take. And John knows I have a billion stories that I could tell. Yeah. I had a client that was running in the airport to catch a flight and broke a hip in Bali, and they obviously missed their flight, right? And they had to have surgery, and the policy provided for a nurse, it provided for an escort home and business class air, blah, blah, blah. It's really important to have travel insurance. People don't know. I tell my team this all the time. A lot of people think it's like they're at Best Buy and somebody says, hey, do you want to buy a printer insurance for this printer you're buying? It's not the same thing. Some of these trips we're protecting are 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. And, it's really important to have protection for that investment. And so we talk through that with them. And if they decide they want insurance, we have options for them. If they decide they don't want insurance, that's great. But we are going to tell them about it, because that's what we do. My job is I don't want to spend my weekend agonized because somebody's losing 30 grand because they didn't take insurance. And, we don't want people to lose money. We have a vested interest in making sure that the guest has all the protections and being able to replan that trip with those same funds because they're going to miss it or because that trip was interrupted. So insurance is very important.
And that conversation, when that person calls you and they don't have insurance, and you find out, and that's got to be night and day, right? One, you're the hero, and the other one, you're giving them really bad news.
Well, those guests that have our insurance, we're telling them, look, don't worry about it. Focus on what you need to focus on, and we're going to get the booking canceled, and we'll tell you what you need to do to file your claim, and, blah, blah, blah. Focus on the person that's ill or whatever you need to take care of. For that other guest, they're not only worried about what happened to their loved one or themselves, they're also worried about the $30,000 they just lost because they didn't have insurance. It's really, everybody's risk is different. Everybody sees value differently. And so, we want to make sure we help our clients protect their investment. We feel that's a reflection upon us if they have a situation where they're not able to get their money back, and we don't want them to be in that position.
All right. Thanks for touching that. It's just, I say this because a week doesn't go by that someone has some really tragic experiences. I've written about it myself on the group, and people don't know. And if they, like I said, if you don't know better or you're not thinking about it, or it's not present in your mind, how important it is. It's something I've learned, and I hope we can pass along to the viewers here. So we'll get back to the questions here. I know you're looking at them.
Yeah, I see that Ann Rice is asking about Egypt. She has the pre in Israel, and has Viking changed the pre options due to the situation? So, sorry, John, I don't mean to take your job. I just saw it real quick.
I'm just going to go.
I'll let you read it again if you want, if it makes you feel good. So Viking is offering an optional extension in Istanbul on many of their Egypt sailings. So as Israel is probably not going to be available, obviously, in the immediate future. So there are some other options that they are offering, and they're looking to offer some others as well. As you know, probably already, if you're following any of the Facebook pages, the trips in Egypt are operating. They're operating well, and guests are coming back very happy and thrilled that they've gone. But of course, currently the situation in Israel, which is, very upsetting, and it's affected that part of travel as well. So until it becomes safe and, the cruise line is able to operate those extensions, I do believe that they will continue to offer optional, alternative options for pre and post. So yeah, I would take a look at that if you're considering it. But I tell my clients this every day: the cruise line is not going to put you in danger. They're not going to expect you to go somewhere that is not safe, or where you would be in danger, where their crew or their guests would be in danger. So they will address that for your particular sailing when the time comes, and probably have some alternatives to offer. But it's a great question, and I appreciate you asking it.
And you might remember Sherry had asked a question earlier about what type of Viking cruise would you recommend. She's talking about river. She wanted to let us know. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah.
And is there a river cruise that stands out to you? I know, I think we've talked about this in the past, but
yeah, the Rhine Getaway probably is my favorite itinerary. I've done it probably 5 or 6 times. The Danube is a great itinerary. Romantic Danube would be the alternate to that. The Grand European, those are probably the 3 most popular. And they're most popular for several reasons, including the fact that it does give the guests the best flavor of river cruising.
Awesome. And I've done the Rhine Getaway. It was my first Viking cruise, and we fell in love with Viking and, of course, river cruising for the first time. I'd only done big ships up until that point, and really, really loved the intimacy. There's only like 190 throwing things. There's only like 196 guests on board.
Yeah.
It's getting crazy over here, Michael. So yeah, really, really great. So Kathy West also said, I always use Air Plus. So worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. And good to know that you always utilize it. It is really important. So.
And Yvonne McMillan is checking in from YouTube. She says, does Viking overbook cruises so that it's possible to get a last minute deal when people cancel? And I think the second question is, are there such thing as last minute deals, right?
Yeah. So, hey, Yvonne, thanks for being here. Yvonne is a longtime client, very, very loyal. So thank you so much for the question. So, I mean, look, there's a lot of discussion on the Facebook page about overbooking of cruises. And I think that, like many businesses coming out of COVID, I think Viking may have overbooked a few of their sailings with guarantees, looking at what the what the cancellations would be coming out of COVID. And so now realizing that many of those guests are not canceling, there are some overbookings that are causing them to make offers for people to move sailings and things like that. This is not going to be typical in the future. I think it's just a remnant of trying to make sure that their ships are full and sailing full. So, but they don't intentionally overbook. I think they use an algorithm to plan for overbooking where they can fill the guarantees in where they need to. So I just think that that's just an issue that has arisen because the algorithm might have been a little bit off for the return to service. But no, I don't think it's intentional that they overbook cruises and to get a last minute deal. Some of the deals we see, and we talk about this a lot, it's very important to Viking to maintain their pricing levels. They don't want somebody paying $2,000 less than somebody else because they know that people talk about pricing. So what we're going to see usually is value adds like free air or an onboard credit or silver spirits package or something like that to incentivize those slow selling sailings or sailings where they have extra space left over. Some of those specials, that people are able to take advantage of, but it's not something that is intentional, or I would have to say, or predictable for that matter.
So my question after hearing that is, would people be able to call you and say, you know what, I'd like to travel, I've got some time to book a cruise. Would they be able to call you and go over some options that might exist for last minute travel?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, this year, as you've heard us say many times, the sell-through is just crazy high. Like the availability of space is limited, very limited, much more limited than in the past. And I think that, but there are things out there. There's availability, but there's not a ton. I mean, you have to be very flexible in the time frame that you can go. You have to be flexible in what type of cabin you're willing to take. You have to be flexible in the itinerary in order for us to find something that's last minute.
But it's a conversation worth having, right?
It's a conversation worth having.
Awesome. So Kathy Gentle's checking in. She said, I missed your first choice of river. So can you go over that again for us?
It would be it would be the Rhine Getaway is probably my favorite itinerary, but that's my personal favorite. So yeah,
And I went too, and then I had something fall on me. So
yeah.
so, uh, and then we have Ann Rice checking again. She goes, just noticed an update that Jordan has closed the airport. People in Cairo are having the extension canceled. This is a compliment to Viking Air as they are currently rebooking people.
Yes, that is correct. They are currently, addressing the situation with guests that, were supposed to go to Jordan on the Jordan extension. And, look, Viking always does the right thing. I say this all the time. They will always assist in getting their clients, our guests, back home or where they need to go. So yes, that's something that Viking does very, very well.
And Marion Maxwell has a question, Michael. We are going on a new cruise for the Iberian and Mediterranean in October 2025. Do you have any inside info on the ocean cruise, this ocean cruise? We have only done river cruises.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to tell you I have inside information on that particular cruise. I'm not really sure what inside information you're looking for. I mean, the cruise itself is pretty straightforward. Everything that applies to that particular cruise pretty much applies to every other ocean cruise, but it's certainly a conversation I'd be willing to have with you, if you want to give me a call, but I don't really have any specific inside information about that particular itinerary.
Maybe the question might be, and this might be helpful to other people, if you don't mind me kind of like prying a little bit, is if you go from a river cruise to a Viking river cruise to an ocean cruise, there is the experience is very similar, right? But some of the benefits, of course, are the spa, the specialty dining options that don't exist, all these things that don't exist on a river cruise, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the ocean cruises are the river cruise product on steroids. It has many of the same things: the included excursion, beer and wine with lunch and dinner, complimentary Wi-Fi, complimentary bottled water, those types of things. The dining room has the same china that the river cruise ships have. They use the same fabrics, similar chairs. The guest likes to have a sense of familiarity, right? So it's just that it's on a much grander scale. And then they do have, the specialty restaurants, Chef's Table and Manfredi's, which are available to all guests. Only guests in DV and above have pre-reservations in those restaurants, by the way, but it is complimentary. And Mamson's, which is themed after the owner's kitchen and what he ate growing up. So there are a lot of different dining venues on board, the pool grill, that kind of thing. So it is a very different experience in that respect, but very similar in the consistencies that, Viking sees that their guests want to see between all three products, actually, river, ocean, and expedition. So they're great products.
And one thing just to add is 24-hour room service on the ocean product too. It's actually something that I wouldn't have thought about, but somebody was recommended to me they have amazing room service. And sometimes it's really nice when you just don't feel like going out. You got a balcony cabin, you can just stay in or get something late at night. It's really, really good. So I highly recommend just to give that a try. It's so nice.
Yeah, so definitely that's a great point. The cabins do have room service on ocean. Of course, River does not offer room service at all because they just don't have the staff to do it, and the kitchen's not open 24 hours. So, their focus on the kitchen really is to feed all 190 passengers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you've seen the kitchen on a river cruise ship, it's very small. So it's actually a miracle that they do that. But yes, so those are some of the differences. But I would encourage you to work, Marianne, with a seasoned travel advisor, somebody that knows Viking really, really well, whether it's myself or someone else that can help you navigate that. That's what we're here for. So it's a great opportunity for you to put your trust into a travel advisor and have them advise you the best way to approach your trip.
And I personally think the once you have the time, because so much of the river cruises you're really off on land exploring, and you really do get a chance to experience the Viking difference. But on board a ship where you have a little more time on board, where there's more venues and time actually on the ship, it kind of takes the level to a new height. And I think you become a bigger fan of the product because you get to experience so much more of it.
Absolutely.
And Gina is joining us from YouTube, and she goes, I know water levels on rivers are unpredictable. How does Viking compensate guests if bust everywhere?
Yeah. So, Gina, I have to say that typically you don't end up being bussed everywhere with a Viking cruise because they usually have a ship going the opposite direction that they can move you to and then turn that ship around and let it keep going. I mean, it definitely is an interruption, and it can be a bus tour if the water levels are very low or they're unable to get another ship to, do a ship swap, for instance. But just as the water levels are unpredictable, the way that Viking addresses that is also unpredictable. I don't want to say it's not consistent. It's consistent from guest to guest on that particular ship, but every situation is different. So there's really not a blanket answer that I could give you for how that would be handled. It just depends on how much of an interruption or inconvenience it was, and then they address it that way. But there's not a way for me to tell you that ahead of time. It would be something that we work with our clients to address when it happens and make sure that they are getting compensated properly for that interruption. But keep in mind, Gina, that usually when we see water level issues, it's at certain times of the year. Those are also going to be the least expensive times of the year to be on the river. So the compensation is almost built into the price of the cruise. We see water level issues typically in July and August. And again, they're unpredictable. They can be at other times of the year. But that is why July and August are less expensive. It's when we see the majority of water level issues happen. But we've seen them happen at other times of the year too. And so when that does happen, the compensation is relative to the interruption or the inconvenience that the guest has had. But it is not a formula that is something that we could share or would even know about.
Wow. So many great questions. It's the hour's flown by, Michael, hasn't it? And we really appreciate that. It's great to have your wonderful questions and really thought-provoking. I know we touched on so much today. We touched on the current specials, which sound incredible for repeat people that have existing bookings. That's good for 15 more days, right?
Yes.
And then we've also covered the Viking Air, all the intricacies, why Michael recommends Viking Air Plus. It gives you the flexibility and it's not a money-making thing. It just gives the guest an opportunity to have flexibility in case you want a better option, maybe direct flights or better connections, and so on and so forth. And also, we talked about some Viking news and answered your questions. So really, really good. Is there something we didn't touch on, Michael, that you wanted to end here with?
No, I think we did a great job of covering everything in the hour that we had. And, I always love answering people's questions. So thanks for those guests that, participated and gave us questions to answer. And I look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah. And I don't know if I told everybody, did I touch this already? That yesterday was Michael's birthday. So this is his birthday weekend. If you could all give us a like for his birthday and also wish him happy birthday in the comments below, wherever you're watching, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate Michael taking this time. I mean, he's the world's top global producer for Viking, sells more Viking cruises than anyone in the entire world, has amazing experience at over 200 cruises, and his wealth of knowledge that he passes on to us with these live streams is really, really valuable. If you want to watch this one again or other ones, please check our Facebook videos, our Facebook Watch, YouTube. It's all recorded. We go back years and years. We're like going way, way back now, an old team here, aren't we, Michael?
Look, I'm a year older than I was the last time we did one. So
yeah, it's amazing. So there's so much knowledge, and luckily, it's still many of it's really, really relevant. We went through the COVID years together. It seems like too. Feel reached. If you enjoyed what Michael had to say and his knowledge, give him a call at 1-800-913-7245 and email him 24 hours a day at michael@planmycruise.com. He'll get back to you, and he'd love to have you as a client. And lastly, have a great weekend. And we thank you all for joining us. And Michael, you take care. Have a great one.
Thank you, John. And thank you to all the people in the thing that said happy birthday. I appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. And thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, John.